Hello everybody and welcome back to the show. The Atheist Experience is live April 24th, 2011. This show is sponsored by Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You know what? I think that I should probably look. Yes, I'm on. See, I haven't done this in so long, I just wanted to make sure I was getting everything right. So you can hear me, and that's great. I'm Martin. This is my wingman, Jen, is with me today, and we are going to spend the next 60 minutes culture jamming this fine Christian nation of ours with freestyle blasphemy and your phone calls. Thanks very much for tuning in. Matt Dillahunty, who is usually in this seat, he is off in Des Moines, Iowa, fighting crime, as well as speaking at the American Atheist Convention up there. And so I'm sure he's having a good time, and next week he'll tell you all about that. I'm sure on Nonprofits, on the blog, on Facebook, on the show here, he'll tell you all about that experience. So we don't really belabor the announcements now because we've only got an hour-long show. So if you want to know more about the organization, please go to atheist-community.org. More about the TV show is at atheist-experience.com, and the unofficial TV show blog, of course, atheistexperience.blogspot.com. And last but not least, we are part of the Zuckerborg. We are at facebook.com/atheistexperience as well, so you can join us there. It's a big, happy online family we've got. So now apparently the Christians are having a holiday today.
Yeah.
Which means we can't go grocery shopping and do things like that. But at least it's this is a fun holiday though, because this is the Christian zombie apocalypse, is it not?
That's right.
Yes.
It is.
It's fantastic. You know, when you think of zombies and religion together, you usually think of things like Haitian voodoo and what have you. But really, no, Christianity is the first full-fledged zombie religion.
Yep, that's right.
It is. They worship a walking corpse.
Yeah.
Right? They eat his flesh and drink his blood. That's right.
Yeah.
No mention of brains in the scripture, but it's implied. Right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, when Jesus arose, there is the full-fledged zombie invasion of Jerusalem that he led.
Which it must have happened because it's documented in Matthew.
Yes.
Matthew chapter 27.
And we are always told,
52.
are we not, that if it's in there,
that's right.
All the proof we need, right?
That's right.
There's
so it says that
eyewitnesses.
Verse 52, Matthew chapter 27, verse 52, it says, "The graves opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and they came out of their graves following his resurrection, and they went into the holy city, Jerusalem, and they appeared unto many." Now,
does it go on from there?
Yeah, it does. It says, "Now when the centurion and they that were there with him, watching Jesus, saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, Truly, this was the Son of God."
But what about more news of the zombie invasion itself, though? That's
nobody ever recorded it.
Was it just too horrific, or maybe the scribes recording it all got eaten, and then they became zombies themselves?
That has to be it.
See,
because everybody knows whenever there's a zombie apocalypse, you got to get a headshot in.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't get the headshot, the zombie will, rise up and infect more people. So,
and of course, this being ancient Judea, right? They're pretty much limited to bows and arrows.
That's right.
Yeah. And so it's very difficult. Like if it's melee combat, you put yourself at a great deal of risk.
Yes.
As anybody who's played Fallout or Left 4 Dead knows, you really need a definite ranged weapon. To really get the zombie to where you are not in immediate danger of zombification yourself.
Yeah.
So this probably, the reason why we don't have too many more details in Matthew, because of course we know how incredibly factual it all must be.
Of course, yeah.
So I would say the lack of details is that those few brave souls who were willing to get close enough to the zombies to actually engage them met a dreadful end, and then were themselves zombies, which means that they were focusing on eating and not writing about what it was like to be a zombie.
And then of course, the Romans, who were in control of the area at the time, thought, we can't let this get out. So they sent the centurions in to kill all the zombies, you know, because they like stabbed them with their long spears or whatever, you know, in the head. Killed all the zombies, disposed of the evidence, and covered it all up because they couldn't let this all get out that, you know, they had lost control of Judea because, you know, that would be bad politics.
Yeah, I mean,
so the very fact that you don't know anything about this
proves
that it's true.
See how it works? It all fits.
It is.
It's incredible. Yeah. Well, I'm converting right this minute. See, I had no idea Christianity was this cool. It's all about zombie invasion.
And conspiracies.
Just think, they've been wasting their whole time. Just think how much more effective evangelism efforts could be for Christians if they focused on the freaking zombie invasion and didn't waste their time with stupid things like creationism and being a bunch of homophobes and anti-science and what have you and all that kind of abortion and all this kind of stuff that no one cares about. No, it's zombies.
Yeah.
That's how you sell your religion.
Yeah.
Why? It just seems so clear. Well, maybe we'll see a change.
And I have to say, in honor of the upcoming zombie apocalypse holiday, I have actually been indulging in every zombie flick and zombie book I can get my hands on in the last week. It's been awesome.
Everyone
I can get my hands on. It's been awesome.
So did you see Strippers versus Zombies?
I haven't seen that one yet.
There you go. See that? Well, that's on Netflix instance, so
okay.
you should try
so
that
I'll have to do that one. But yeah,
it will be at least as culturally enlightening as any of the others.
Yeah,
I'm quite sure.
Yeah,
you know. So well. Now see if they could work strippers into the New Testament version. Oh well, yeah. Well,
they've got plenty of hookers. I mean, every woman there is either a virgin or a whore. So.
Yeah, it was. Things were all very simple back then.
I know. Yeah.
So virgin, whores, we can work with this. We've got virgins. We've got prostitutes. We've got zombies. There's a pitch here, Jen, and I think we could do it.
Yeah,
there's big money in this. Yeah.
And you would know. You're the filmmakers.
Well, yeah. So we'll work on it.
We got to work on this.
Yeah. We'll just after the show, we'll put our heads together. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So apart from that, what do we do on this program besides be incredibly serious as we're doing now? Well, we take your calls. We appreciate calls from all of our viewers, of course. We do prioritize theist calls because those are the most enjoyable to us and to our viewers. If you're an atheist caller and you have like a really, really good question for us, that's great. We'd love to hear from you too. If you just want to call us up and tell us you enjoy the show or what have you, or if you have, say, a really involved, really lengthy sort of problem, like we get a lot of emails from people who are like, I'm engaging in this big debate with a theist friend of mine on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and here's my entire cut-pasted 200-word, 500-word, 2,000-word transcript of it. Please tell me what to do from here on, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how to come out to my mom or whatever. Those might be better to send us as emails. Those, okay. I can't guarantee that the big long transcripty argumenty thing will get too many responses. It's just a lot to read and a lot of work to do. But we answer whatever emails we can. If we don't answer them, it doesn't mean that we hate you or that we ignore you or don't care. It's just volume. But please send them in. And otherwise, okay.
Well, before we get to the calls here, I just want to point out that. We've been getting your emails. Yes, we are aware that the governor of Texas has issued a proclamation asking people to pray for rain because we've burned half the state down now, or at least 100 acres or something like that. Yeah. Okay, guys, we understand that our governor is a God-soaked moron, okay? We get it, Regrettably, he's been reelected more times than any other governor in the history of the state, but,
Demonstrating the high...
That just tells us we've got our work cut out for us here.
Yep, indeed, it does. Well, shall we start our work? See what I did there? Segue?
Yeah,
nice.
There you go.
Okay. We're going to go to line 2. I believe Dan is on the line from Fort Charlotte, Florida. So.
Hey.
Hi, can you hear us?
Hi, how you doing?
Just fine. Thanks for calling.
Hey, am I coming through okay?
Yes, you're coming through just fine.
Okay. Well, I'm a theist. And I'm here to kind of offer evidence for the case of God, not necessarily to prove him.
Okay.
Okay.
So I did write a kind of lengthy, maybe a page and a half. So I'd like to kind of read that.
Well, instead of reading from like a full verbatim thing you've done, can you just like focus on the very best points just so we can keep the flow going?
Well,
or just like center on like the best bit first. Give us like the best bit first.
All right. Well, basically, the thesis, which is question that I posed to atheists says that as a theist, I can recognize the magnificent beauty and divinity of nature. I can appreciate the beauty and subjectively experience God within a flower petal. Just as equally, I can subjectively experience consciousness, but seemingly there's no evidence for either. So why is it that atheists can accept the quality of consciousness and not God?
Well, why does consciousness presuppose a God, or why is God a God necessary for consciousness?
I'm sorry?
Why do you link the two things? Why is one a necessary condition of understanding the other? Why would belief in a God be necessary in order to acknowledge and understand such a thing as consciousness?
Well, I'm guessing because, science, atheists use scientists to kind of say that there is no God.
Well, I wouldn't know about that. I wouldn't put it that way. What I would say, what we might say is that we consider there to be a lack of compelling evidence for the existence of a God. Now, whether you want to, and I personally, I'm in agreement with Dawkins and some others that I think it is very much a scientific question. Some people say it's a question outside the realm of science. I say that if people are positing that a God is, for example, the reason why there is a universe, there is the world we live in, there is anything at all, then that becomes an origins question, and I think that's very much within the bounds of scientific inquiry. But generally speaking, it's not like you don't use science to say there now we're going to use science to prove that X, Y, or Z we don't believe in, really.
Okay.
So
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying you can't use science to prove either right now. But I think that it can be proved.
But wait a minute. If you're making a testable claim, that very much becomes the realm of science. So if you claim that God did some specific act, and then we can come back and show that not only did there not have to be a God in order for that to occur, but here's the actual natural explanation for it, then yeah, you can use science to disprove a claim.
But here's the more, yeah, that's true. But here I think is the more direct approach to what you're saying, I think, which is if you're calling us up and you're saying I want to present a line of evidence for the idea that a God exists, but then at the same time you want to tell us, well, you can't use science or the scientific method to prove it either way, then considering that we know that the scientific method is a process that works, right? It's a process of, you observe phenomena, you draw conclusions based on observations and experimentation, that sort of thing. Then my question to you is, what is the criteria you are using to determine that the claim a God exists is true and not false? What are the methods that you're applying? What are the standards that you're applying to determine the truth of that claim?
Well, that's sort of what I've been writing about.
Okay.
That there is a underlying nature to the aspect of reality that is the same definition that we give God.
So are you saying that that God is just another name for nature? Is it more like, are you offering, because that sounds like a pantheism.
Well, like a unified field that is intelligent.
Okay, now how do you determine that? How do you determine that exists and that thing is intelligent?
Well, classical physics draws a distinction between particles and energy, whereas quantum mechanics is based on the fact that matter has both wave and particle aspects. And this is defined by the Copenhagen interpretation. And this understanding created the notion called wave-particle duality, which postulates that all matter exhibits both wave and particle properties. And this means that an atom only appears in its particular place because so an atom spread out all over the place and third side to look at.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Just pause it. Hold that thought, because you're feeding back a little bit. I don't know if you've got a television on nearby, or if you have an internet or some speaker going on, or maybe it's just something they need to do in the control room. I'm having a little trouble making out everything you're saying, but go ahead, keep going, and we'll work on it.
Okay.
So
I think the philosophical question here is, does consciousness create reality? And I know that's kind of in a New Age category.
Okay. No, I think I know what you're getting at. There are two possibilities here. There's primacy of existence and primacy of consciousness. And you're proposing primacy of consciousness. Is that it?
That's right.
Okay. Well, the problem, though, with that is that in order for that consciousness to receive the reality, to bring that reality into being, as it were, by being conscious of it, that consciousness would have to exist.
That's right.
So I don't see how you can get around primacy of existence, because a consciousness that does not exist cannot perceive a reality and thereby bring it into existence through its perception.
And that's right.
Unless that consciousness exists. So I don't see, I've never seen how primacy of consciousness can work.
Well, there's a lot of science that can't be worked out very easily. Just like quantum non-locality. Sure,
but what you do in those cases is you reserve judgment on the question at that point. I mean, if there's a thing, for example, a scientist will say, if we do not have adequate evidence for X hypothesis, we're not going to draw a conclusion about that hypothesis yet. We're going to continue studying. So I think the best you can do, from at least the line of argument that I think you're trying to take here, is an inconclusive result.
Well, I got something here that I would like to offer.
Okay.
Which kind of puts consciousness in the unified field. And so basically, it's basically this work by Stuart Campbell. And he says that within the synaptic cleft, there are these microtubules, which are like mini computers processing information on a cellular level. And that within that, the consciousness or the Bing effect occurs when superpositioning takes place. And that Bing effect is consciously floating around in different places of our brain. So an example of a directly observable effect of superposition is the interference piece from an electron wave in a double slit experiment. I don't know if you've heard of Schrodinger's cat.
Mm-hmm. But again, I still don't see how this precludes existence, right? I mean, again, for this consciousness to do anything, and pitch in here if anything I'm saying is not, I mean, if you can add, it just, in order for this, the consciousness that you propose to make these observations, it must exist.
Right. And
so you've got primacy of existence in pretty much any case. I mean, even if a consciousness is such that by observing, and I think, and this is a solipsistic argument, which I don't really, think it has a lot of, of value to begin with. But just for the sake of the argument, even if a consciousness has the ability to create a specific reality by observing it, by bringing it into being, by the observation, managing to,
well, no. I think that's
split the difference between particle and wave or what have you. It would still have to exist first. There would have to be a state of existence in play in order for it to do that. So yeah.
Well, that's part of the wave-particle duality, is that everything is a wave first.
But then, but then wouldn't that apply to this cosmic consciousness, aka God, that you're referring to? And if so, then who observes it in order to bring it into its, state of existence so that it can then go on and create universes?
Right. Well, there's infinite parallel universes, and that, you're stuck in a wave of possibilities. And once consciousness exists, then materialization occurs.
Yeah.
Consciousness exists, then materialization occurs. So consciousness can occur without a brain?
Well, it isn't until the possibilities that allow for a brain to exist can occur.
Right, but if the consciousness must exist, then existence must exist in order for the consciousness to exist.
Right, and that goes back to how do you get nothing out of something? I mean, how do you get something out of nothing, rather?
No, I don't think it does.
No,
I'm not quite sold on it. I mean, I see what you're trying to do, but I don't see any way that you are able to get around existence existing, needing to exist, the necessity of existence. Existence itself being what you might call the causal primary. Existence must exist in order for these consciousnesses, whether they are, one God from one universe or multiple gods from multiple parallel universes or what have you, in order for them to exist, for them to be able to then go on and do the observing that they do, to affect waves and particles in the way that they do, it all comes back to existence must exist first in order for them to exist, to do everything with it. So I don't quite think, I mean, a valiant effort, but I don't think you're quite selling it.
Hey, Dan, are you the guy that emailed us asking us for the top 10 reasons we don't believe in a God?
No.
Okay.
No,
different
okay.
Dan. All right.
Different Dan. Okay.
So, yeah, that's kind of where I am with all this. And Jen, I don't know,
Yeah.
anything to pitch in?
No, I'm not sold.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that, science is just showing this, actually. I mean, this is not something that is not being discovered. This is something that is being understood by the higher level aspects of, quantum physicists.
Well, let me ask you this. If you think that the science that you're telling us about here is so compelling, that has such compelling evidence for the existence of a God, why is it that physicists are among the least likely scientists to be believers?
Well, the thing is that yes, there are a lot of good physicists out there, and I don't take anything away from them. But you got, like, for example, all the best scientists who provide us the most in-depth understanding of the real world are the ones that actually believe in God.
Oh, I don't know that you can. I don't know that you can say
no.
that at all. I mean, I think that's. I think now you're just starting to make things up. I mean, there are a great many scientists out there who are indifferent to the notion of a God, who are unbelievers. Some are believers, but they don't think that the question of a God's existence enters into the particular line of work they do. But you simply cannot. You are now at the point of simply coming up and just pulling things out of your hat in order to sort of score some style points, debate points with us, and that's really not.
What I'm trying to show is that there are two sides of the coin.
Well, there may very well be, but you can't just go along and say, well, because now what you're doing is you're making a couple of fallacies. You're doing the appeal to authority plus the appeal to popularity. You're saying that not only do scientists believe in God, but then most scientists believe in God. So now you're just trying to sort of bull us over with the numbers.
Not only that, but the ones that believe in God are making the most contribution, which is not true, because more than 90% of the members of the National Academy of Sciences are, in fact, non-believers. Yeah. So, if you want to make that claim, then you got to deal with that.
And it's ultimately irrelevant. So it's unwise to bring a fallacy into your argument
really
in the first
irrelevant.
place.
And my question really was about, you've got a group of people who stop.
Hang on.
My point here was that you've got a group of scientists who are the people closest to the data, who understand it the best, and who don't believe it points to a God. Yeah. So that's the hurdle you have to deal with if you want to use this information to support a claim that a God exists.
And there's another one that I think is really interesting too, which is that when we get and we get a lot of calls from theists like yourself, who either try to use these arguments from quantum mechanics, or they will use complex logical proofs to try to propose a God. One thing that I have found that's always interesting is I've met very, very few rank and file Christians, whether I'm talking about my parents or their friends or just people who go to church every Sunday, whose reason for believing in God and believing that Jesus is the Son of God and for being Christian and for believing that by dedicating themselves, confessing Jesus as their Savior, they're going to heaven. All of these standard beliefs that the vast majority of our Christian culture does believe as core tenets of the religion, none of them came to these beliefs through these arguments or through these tortuous, through transcendental argument for God, or through trying to understand God as some sort of cosmic consciousness, influencing the universe at a quantum level or anything like that. These are never the reasons you actually hear believers say, "This is why I am Christian." And so I find it very interesting that we get these arguments quite frequently, and I'm wondering if it's just to do with if these are sort of arguments that were kind of created after the fact in order to appeal to scientifically minded non-believers. And I'm much more interested in simply hearing from Christians, just from everyday Sunday go-to-meeting Christians, why they
But those
believe
are
in
the-
God.
Those are the fundamentalists. You know, most
Not
of
even
them.
fundamentalists.
No, they're not.
My parents aren't fundamentalists. They're not hardcore right-wing, Tea Party Christians by a long shot. But
But they
do
don't
believe.
offer that strong of an argument.
Well,
I mean, from a theist perspective, when you think about natural world, you wonder about God.
but it's enough for them, and
it's
it's enough for most Christians. And so
Yeah.
what I'm interested in knowing, Dan, is if you are Christian, why are you Christian?
well,
what converted
I was
you?
predisposed to Christianity. I was raised in a Christian family.
So you were raised in a Christian culture, in a Christian family, like most of us were. I was raised Christian. So your main reason for being Christian is simply that you were raised into it.
I'm not claiming to be Christian. I have my own kind of belief about it, and which is kind of unique. And I don't think that I fall to the general category of Christians.
Okay, so then do you believe Jesus was the Son of God?
I do believe that.
Do you believe that Jesus was resurrected from the dead after spending 3 days on the cross? Which is what today's big holiday is all about?
Yes, I think that's true.
Okay, well that seems to make you a fairly conventional Christian in that regard. I mean, as I understand, in order to be a Christian, in order to properly hold that mantle, you need to believe in God, you need to believe that Jesus was his son sent down to earth to be sacrificed for our sins, and that once he was sacrificed, he was raised from the dead. So you sound to
See,
me...
but it's the perspective of God that is different. And I think the universe is in a sense Godian, quote unquote. And that was the need to have someone to represent the deity.
Okay, so then God is essentially a projection of mankind's upon the universe. God is humanity's. This is my thought. God is humanity's projected self-image upon the universe as a whole. It's our way of understanding the universe by putting a human face on the universe. We look at the universe and we say, this makes sense as a cosmic intelligence. When we put a human face on it, it becomes easier to relate to. It becomes not such a big, scary place, empty vacuum anymore. It's a place that's made for us, that's welcoming to us.
And I believe that it's a kind of co-creating process that, how do I articulate this? We offer our beliefs to consciousness, to the way that the world, the universe is, that this God somehow materialized out of nothing because he's omnipresent, everything, omni-X, Y-Z.
Okay.
That is reason that he exists.
He exists because, let me make sure I'm very clear on what you're saying here. He exists because he was brought into existence.
In the future. But he exists throughout everything.
Right,
that's just my personal belief on it.
No, but I think it sounded to me a lot like what you were saying was that people, theists, Christians, people who believe in God, God was brought into existence by their belief. That sounded a lot like what you were just saying.
Well, it says in Genesis.
No. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Because you talked about so you talked about a co-creating process.
Yes,
So-
God and humans are kind of independent on each other.
Okay, so then human beings created God by virtue of their belief in the image of humanity.
Right.
All right, thank you. All right, let's see, who is next?
Wow.
Luka from New York is on line 1 and has been waiting very patiently.
Yes, let's talk to Luka.
Okay.
Hi,
Luka?
Luka.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you
Yeah.
great, thank you.
I have a nasty echo. I can hear my own voice in my phone, but
Oh, you actually,
Okay.
you sound a lot more clear than Dan to us, so go right ahead.
okay. Well, I wanted to tell you a funny story before I ask you a question. You obviously know about the May 21st Armageddon claims by the Family Radio folks, right?
Yes, we know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I called them up and offered that I would like to, donate $10,000 to them. And they were, very, very happy about it. But then I said that I had one condition, that if nothing happened on May 21st, on May 22nd, they would have to give me back my money plus 10% interest. And brace yourself, guys, because you might not believe this, but they didn't go for it.
Yeah. I'm not
Almost
surprised.
as though they didn't believe it themselves.
It's funny, isn't it? It's just sort of like
Yeah.
when When Oral Roberts did his, send me however many millions of dollars.
Because God's going to call me home.
But it's like, I didn't hear any reports that he had taken out like an extra life insurance policy for his, just in case or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, that is funny.
Okay.
That is funny. Okay.
So my question was actually more of a practical one from fellow atheists. I know Jen has a kid. I don't know if you do, Martin.
I do not. I have
Okay.
2 dogs and a one-eyed cat, and that's enough kids for me.
All right. Well, but that's okay. My question was about when people do start having kids as atheists, what do you think we should tell them about like more benign superstitions like the tooth fairy or Santa? Are those the equivalent of, if I can borrow a term from the Christian right, like a segue drug into more, making the mind more susceptible to more dangerous superstitions, or is it okay?
Well, I can only tell you what I do with my son. In terms of Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, and stuff like that, I don't treat those as any different than cartoon characters on TV. And a lot of people will say, oh, if you don't let them believe in Santa Claus, you're taking part of the joy of Christmas, out of it for them. And I can assure you that my son has not experienced any less joy at getting presents than any other kid. He thinks it's
Exactly.
he thinks it's absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting because he was at his school and somebody came up to him. This was shortly after the Christmas holidays, and somebody came up and said, "What did Santa Claus bring you?" And he said, "Nothing." And she said, "What, you didn't get any presents for Christmas?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got presents." And she's like, "Well, who gave you those presents?" And he's like, "Mom did it." So, he totally knows that, now he thinks Santa Claus is kind of cool. He's real fascinated with it, but he understands it's a make-believe character, just like SpongeBob or, Tough Puppy or any of the cartoons he likes to watch. And same thing with the Easter Bunny. So we participate in all these little rituals and everything. He has a great time, and, he knows they're not real.
Okay.
And he recently lost a tooth, another one, and and he pulled it out as we were pulling into the driveway, and then promptly lost it in my car. And so the next morning he gets up, and we found out that he had tooth fairied himself because the tooth was missing. So we wanted to make sure, he got his quarter for his tooth. So he put his own quarter under his pillow. So,
You know how you could totally mess with them if you take the quarter and replace it with $1.
yeah.
That would have been like,
Oh, no. Then the price for a tooth will go up to $1.
Oh,
I know how
okay.
my son works.
all right, well that's.
So that's what I do for handling these little myths and everything. The other thing that I recommend is that if you've got young kids, you can start inoculating them against religious claims early on. And one of the best ways I know to do that is start reading Greek and Roman mythology to them. Because the stories are a lot better than the ones that the Abrahamic religions peddle, and it kind of grabs him and takes him on this adventure and everything. And so when he gets to school and somebody talks about Jesus being the Son of God, I want him to be able to say, "Oh yeah, a demigod. I know what that is."
Right.
So he totally knows what that is, and he's not susceptible to that kind of indoctrination. So there's
There
ways
you go.
of doing this.
Now I remember Santa Claus was involved in the earliest childhood memory I have of skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I must have been 7-ish, and we were at a shopping center where they had their Santa doing the Christmas thing, Santa's Latin, tell me what you want and everything. And I demanded to know where his sleigh was, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to see the sleigh. So I'm like, where's your sleigh? Where's your reindeer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, oh, they're up on the roof, So we got done, and I immediately demanded from my parents to be taken to the roof of the shopping center. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think to humor me, we went on the elevator and we rode it up, but we did not actually get to. I was determined to get on the frickin' roof, right? I mean, I was going to get on that roof. Nothing was going to stop my little investigative 7-year-old brain. But we couldn't get on the roof, and so I just sort of went home like, I mean, I don't know that I ever really believed Santa Claus was a real guy. I think I may have just always seen him as being like the this great Christmas tradition story.
Yeah.
And I think also maybe that's partly because I was a very small boy, we were living overseas. And so we didn't have quite the insularity of just the American culture.
Yeah.
I mean, we lived in American cultures when we lived overseas, but we still had the exposure to the local cultures as well. So, but Santa had to do with my earliest wanting to actually check this stuff out and be a good skeptic. So,
there you go.
all right, so
Cool.
so is that it?
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, yeah, sure. I could talk to you guys all day, but I guess there's other people waiting.
Yeah, we got about 25 minutes, so we're going to let it go on. So thanks so much again.
All right.
And we were starting to get actually quite a lot of interference on his call. So
yeah.
I am being reminded to tell everyone that after this program, we go and consume food, or at least what passes for it, at El Arroyo, which is a Mexican restaurant on 5th Street here. Tell them I'm not a huge fan. El Arroyo, but that's where we go.
Like El Arroyo.
El Arroyo.
El Arroyo's good.
These dinners, just like our, say, Sunday brunches that we do, and usual physical meetup gatherings. Happy hour is also a thing we do at Dog and Duck Pub.
Yep.
These little events, which you can find out on the ACA website, details of. These are for atheists, agnostics, atheist-friendly persons. They're not, these are social gatherings. It's not appropriate for believers to come and think they're, it's a good place to evangelize to us. Nope, you do that here on this show. You do it on our blog. So that's happening right after the program. We should all wheel on out of here between 5:30 and 6 and be there around 6-ish. So, okay. Next in the queue is Jason in Denver is on line 4. Hi, Jason. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Ah, you're on the air.
Great.
All right. I had a question for you guys. I'm a free thinker, and I haven't been one for more than probably a year or so. But it's really exciting, and I've kind of opened my mind up to a lot of things. One of the things that has been of primary importance to me is just the value of humanity. I would guess classify myself as a humanist, and the value of human life. And so I'm still very much puzzled by the justification for on-demand abortion, because it seems to me, and let me clarify before I go any further, I'm not saying that in every single case that abortion is uncalled for, much like morality in general. Obviously it's fluid, but I would compare it similar to what I would compare other types of crimes to, where, for instance, like stealing, for instance. There might be a case where I would have to steal in order to support my family, in order to protect them, or to, but in general, we don't steal from one another. And so, and when it comes to abortion, just the idea of taking a human life that could potentially be able to survive on its own seems unethical to me, and I'd like to hear how you would justify that.
Fair enough.
Well, when you say that it's not unjustified in every case, who do you think should make the decision about when abortion is justified and when it isn't?
Well, I guess I would compare it similar to how, the government, we as a people collectively decide on certain things, like murder, for instance. Okay. We believe that murder is wrong. We would send people to jail for murdering, but if there's a unique case where I'm protecting my family, then we would all agree that it's okay to, shoot the perpetrator or whatever.
Okay. So
similarly, with, taking another life, I would say, it would be a collective thing based more on morality and based on esteem for human life than it would be upon just anybody's own preference or decision.
Okay. So the public gets to decide when an abortion is justified.
Well, would you say that the public should decide when a murder is justified?
That's a little bit different case, but
Yeah,
let me ask you something. Should the public decide that you have to give up a kidney so that someone else should live? Can you be forced to give your kidney to someone? Okay, why not?
Right. But the kidney is not a living being.
But it's a human cell, and you'd be saving a human life.
But it's not a separate life from yours.
Okay, but if it's going to save a separate life from yours, can you be forced to give your kidney to your own child? Can a court compel you to give
No.
your kidney to your own child?
No. But I don't see how you could compare an organ with an actual human.
Well, what I'm comparing is the fact that until a certain point during the pregnancy, the fetus is not viable. It is dependent on the mother's body to survive. And so by what authority do you compel her to continue to use her body to support someone else?
Well, when you say it's not viable, you have to define your terms, because you could even say a baby after it's born isn't viable.
Well, it's not a baby after it's born. If you take it from the mother, it's not dependent on the mother's body for anything. Okay?
It's dependent on the mother's breast.
No,
Well,
it isn't. You
but
can
you
feed
can-
the child formula.
Yeah.
Any woman,
Right, I know, but
any woman could sustain that child.
Exactly. In the exact same way, you could also take a premature baby, and you could give it, put it into an incubator, and allow it to survive that way. So there is artificial means to make
And there's a hard stop to that. And prior to that, fetuses do not survive outside the womb.
There are a couple of
neither would they survive after they're born if they're not cared for, just like a premature baby would not survive either.
That is a totally separate issue, because after they're born, any competent adult can care for that child. Prior to their birth, they are completely dependent on the mother's body.
biologically dependent, not
biologically
emotionally
dependent.
Yeah. Here's the problem here's something that I feel I should mention, because it's, and I certainly, on the one hand, there is, I'm simpatico with how you're trying to think of this. If you're trying to think of it in humanist terms, I've heard people arguing for vegetarianism and against the eating of meat for many of the same reasons that you're sort of giving here, for your views on the abortion issue, that a life is a life is a life. But you have a couple of presuppositions, or at least one key presupposition that you're arguing from, which is that you are sort of automatically equating the termination of a pregnancy through abortion to like the same sort of homicide where, like, if I walked into a convenience store and shot the guy at the register, you're saying that you're essentially considering those things morally equivalent, and I don't think that they are morally equivalent. They're, as Jen has pointed out, first off, for quite a long time during the gestation process, right? What you're thinking of as a fetus is basically it's a little blastula. It's a tiny little clump of cells that's not even the size of a chickpea, and in many of these cases, these little embryos, these little early on versions of a human being, are spontaneously and naturally aborted. There are many cases where an egg will be fertilized, but it will not attach to the uterine wall, and it'll get flushed out, and there you go.
Right.
So there are.
In a similar way, many people die from natural causes. I mean, that's just obviously happens even after you're born.
But I think
the reason I compare those two to a murder after and before is because I'm talking about a baby who is still viable at, like, say 5 months, or say even sometimes 4 months, but for sure 5 months old, where you could take the baby out of the womb, and it could, if it had loving care from a doctor, it could still survive. And so I'm saying,
yeah, but you know that in case of actual abortions, and Jen, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but those sorts of abortions are a vanishingly smaller number, right? Yeah. And they are usually only done. In fact, I think in most cases those very late term abortions are already illegal, and they're usually done solely to save the life of the mother. I mean, if they're so desperate,
or in the case where there's a catastrophic problem with the fetus, then the fetus will not survive.
Like the fetus will, like it's anencephalic or so.
Yeah, and I understand that, and so you guys would agree with me then, I guess, that in those cases that it should be illegal.
Well, it is illegal.
It is illegal already. But I think the difference where we're coming from, the direction we're coming from this question on, is that we still agree that we agree, Jen and I, and I think most people who take the pro-choice position, is that we believe that it is the mother's responsibility and not some the overall abortion question should be treated as a medical issue.
Yeah.
And when it comes to and I think that there is this misunderstanding. There's this assumption that some people make that abortions are these things that women go and get like a manicure if they just, you know,
Right.
just,
or that you can walk into an abortion clinic 8 months pregnant and say, you know what, I've changed my mind. I don't want to be pregnant. Let's just do the abortion. That does not happen.
Yeah, I mean,
That's not how it works.
Yeah, I think it's certainly it can be a troubling issue, but I think the central question that you have to look at is at what point does the mother give up her personhood for the potential personhood of the fetus in her womb? At what point does its right exceed hers?
Well, or at least be on an equal level.
Yeah.
And I think the law is clear. Yeah, I mean that point is delineated by the law, and it's actually pretty conservative. Okay, so there's a point at which you can't get an abortion, except in cases where the mother's life is in danger or there's some catastrophic abnormality and the fetus will not survive.
Right, because I'm not arguing for microscopic cell abortion type of stuff. I'm talking about a developed fetus that would be viable if it wasn't aborted.
Okay.
So
abortion on demand means that the woman can go to an abortion clinic at any point up to that point where the law says no more. The fetus's interests are now on par with the mother's. A woman can walk into an abortion clinic at any point up to that time and get a legal abortion. That's what abortion on demand means. It doesn't mean that after you cross over that point that you can just go get an abortion on a whim because you changed your mind after 5 or 6 months.
Yeah. So I think we figured out that what you're really overly concerned about isn't that pressing of a problem. And it's
okay, because I was definitely under the impression that babies could be aborted even at the point where the fetus would be viable or able to survive outside of the womb.
No. Those only medical emergencies in those cases. Only medical emergencies, like dire medical emergencies. Yeah.
And you understand how very late-term abortions are done, right? For like third trimester abortions where the fetus dies and you've got to do an abortion.
Yeah.
You understand what's involved in that, right?
It is protection of the mother, you're saying, basically.
No, I want to make
the
clear.
Procedure.
The procedure is that you induce labor. The woman has to deliver a dead baby.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's not, some outpatient procedure that you get done somewhere.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if your big concern is that there are all these possibly viable babies out there just being chucked in, dumpsters as a matter of routine, I don't think that's really happening as much as you might be worrying about. Also, what was I going to say? Oh, the best position to take, and then I think the best way to put it into practice is, of course, that if abortion is the thing that troubles you as a general rule, then by all means, promote comprehensive sex education in the schools, promote contraceptive education, contraceptive availability, make sure that people who don't want to have babies aren't out there having them unintentionally, make sure that we're all out there being protected from those unwanted pregnancies and unwanted other problems that can happen, STDs, and just, sexual responsibility is the key. And that more than anything else, knowing what you're getting into if you choose to be sexually active, is the thing that's going to reduce abortions in the country. Just a big legislative situation that takes a big umbrella solution to something that is in fact a big tent solution to what is actually a very complex problem. Is a little too draconian, and that's the big worry. All right. Okay, we're going to move on to the next column, but thanks very much for your question. It was a good one. Okay.
All right.
So let's see, and so we have about 12 minutes left. I'm going to try to grab 2 more folks. All right, we have John on line 1. We're going to take... Hello, John, can you hear us?
Hey, what's up?
Hi.
How you doing?
How did the Easter show turn into the abortion show?
Well, it's just what he wanted to talk about, I guess.
We take whatever people want to talk about on the call.
Yeah.
Well, you said you wanted to talk to a Christian and a Sunday go to meeting Christians, and so that's what I decided to call.
All right.
Okay.
What did you think about the whole quantum physics thing? Do you think that's just unnecessary, or?
I wasn't. You talking about earlier on this show?
Yeah, the guy who called earlier.
I think quantum physics is some pretty weird stuff. I don't.
Well, you're dead right about that.
I didn't hear the discussion, so I don't have an opinion.
Right, but it's got nothing to do with you being a Christian then, right?
Yeah.
No, does quantum physics have anything to do with me being a Christian?
Yeah, it doesn't, does it?
No, I'm
right.
a Christian because I was born in a family of Christians. I was
There you go.
surrounded by Republicans from the day I was born, and so I just
Make
that's
it
the
all down
religion.
anyway.
I'm a believer, you know. I believe in a lot of things.
Okay, so what would you like to talk about today?
Well, you know, you say well, the show is about what you believe and why you believe in it. And
Sure.
Okay.
to me, one thing that I feel is that there are levels of beliefs. I mean, there's not just black and white. Like, oh, I'm for sure that Jesus, whatever, was a person who lived 2,000 years ago, or you know, like, okay, this is what I have theories, right? And like, I believe in astronauts. I believe that
You mean like
I
NASA?
actually know some astronauts.
Do you mean NASA astronauts or like the ancient ones who, like, you hear about on the History Channel?
Yeah, well, yeah, the ones that, you know, the seed theory is
Ah, okay.
with stuff like that. I believe there are secret astronauts who are breaking the news that they are here to us gently. And that's what religion is. And that's what the whole social, political phenomenon process of moral evolution and society, like all that is the Spirit, the Holy Ghost, breaking it to us gently, because we're not really ready for objective gods. We're only ready for some kind of, I mean, it's being revealed on a subjective level gradually, but I think at some point we will reach a point where the Holy Ghost flying saucer will land and Jesus will walk off. And
So I don't know if I don't know if I would call that a good theory or a Poe theory, but
Yeah.
to you know,
I couldn't
it would.
hear you. I'm really, the sound is just terrible.
Well, we can hear you. Yeah. Well.
No, I can't hear you.
Oh dear. Well, hopefully they can hear me out there in on the internet and TV land. Yeah. Don't really have a whole heck of a lot to say about that one, other than that it would either be the most momentous occurrence in the history of humanity, or, you know, you're just putting us on, which would be all in good fun. But
No, I'm serious. This is just a theory.
Okay.
And how I tie it into the Christianity thing is, I believe that these extraterrestrials or these astronauts are the ones who have actually passed down the stories of all the religions, all the myths of the Great Spirit, and you know, all the different moral, heroic tales of the past. Those are things that were given to the human species a long time ago, and they're designed to be interpreted according to the understanding of whoever's reading it, whether it be somebody 1,000 years ago during the Spanish Inquisition, or somebody in 2001 who's talking about quantum physics and you know, how weird everything is, and how the more we know, the less we know, and you know, and we can still look at these. It's not just the Bible, you know. I think all scriptures, you know, have. I think Dr. Seuss' Cat in the Hat's got a message, you know. It's a story about a story.
it's all aliens. Yeah. So basically the theory
No, I
goes.
do not believe in aliens. Don't put words in my mouth.
Astronauts, ancient. Okay.
No, there's no such thing. I don't even believe in aliens on Earth, like these borders between countries and all this bullshit. Right. So,
well,
what about you? Who's to say who was here first?
Doctor Who. All right. That was interesting up to a point, but otherwise, when it stopped making sense, I thought we would use our final 4 minutes to talk to someone. I mean, really, John, in your world, making sense is just something that happens to other people, isn't it? All right. Anyway, Rod on line 3 will be our final call for today, I think. Thanks for holding, Rod. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How you doing, man?
I'm sorry?
Good. He said, how you doing?
Oh, we're fine. Yeah.
Excuse me. Basically, my question here was, I'm an atheist, and I've been everything that I believe obviously is backed up by evidence and concrete proof. And basically, if somebody provides me evidence that God exists that is irrefutable, it's not falsifiable. Basically. I'm not going to take that evidence into consideration. So I started thinking, what would be the sort of evidence that I would take to believe in God? So let's say that tomorrow every single person on this planet gets a vision from some transcendental being saying, I'm God, it's me, I'm here, hello. My first reaction wouldn't be that that's God. My first reaction would be it's something we don't understand. It could be aliens that develop some technology we don't know about that allows them to do that. So anything that anybody could ever show me that hints at supernatural, my first reaction is going to be, well, we just can't explain it. That doesn't mean it is supernatural. So basically, my own position on the evidence of God is unfalsifiable. Is that something that's sensible to have, do you think?
Oh, I think very much
Yeah,
so.
I think it's reasonable.
I mean, that's usually what the question I like to hit creationists with would be, especially if they are trying to promote some scientific-sounding version of creationism like intelligent design. I always ask them, well, how do you falsify this hypothesis? What do you think a non-designed, a non-God designed universe would look like? And they can never really tell me. I've never gotten a good answer. So that tells me right there, God is not a falsifiable concept, therefore scientifically invalid, therefore we can ignore it.
Well, and I'll point out that when religions do make testable claims, they fail. I mean, this whole, what we started the show with, this whole zombie apocalypse thing that allegedly happened, except nobody recorded it. Oh wait, that's right. It was the conspiracy theory.
That must have been it. I think, I think John was probably more right.
Yeah.
Than we said, which is why I had hung up on him, because of course we are part of the conspiracy.
You can't let that out.
Right, but we think that having a position that's unfalsifiable, basically, you cannot show me any evidence, no matter how extraordinary and unbelievable it is, to make me believe in God, when I'm myself professing that any sort of evidence has to be falsifiable, yet my position is unfalsifiable. I mean, how do you, I really hadn't thought of how to resolve that.
You're saying that your position is unfalsifiable?
Right, because...
Well, but it's not your responsibility to come up with some kind of falsifiable example that they would meet. And you know what? We're almost out of time here, so...
Oh, I think so, yeah. Credits are rolling.
Credits are rolling, so...
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, it was great.
Back. It was a lot of fun. And so, be with us next Sunday. We're here. Matt will be back with, I think Jeff D. is usually after me.
Actually, I don't know that there's a live show next week.
Oh, there may. Oh, well, darn. Well, whatever happens,
We'll
stay tuned, blog, website, all the rest of it. Thank you very much for tuning in this time, and we will see you next time.